Yo, what's up? Your boy, Mad Scientist, once again. How you guys doing? Everybody on radio and everybody on all my live streams, YouTube, Facebook, also um, Twitch. How you guys doing? Hope you guys are enjoying your Easter weekend. However you enjoy it, hope you have a good time with it. And I wish everybody out there the best, the very best. Okay. All right, let me go ahead and get into this. Hey, what's up? This your boy Mad Scientist on an all new Power 97.5 LA. Today we are just talking music, where we bring you vital information about music production, promotion, and distribution every week right here. Right here, where? Well, we're on the Power 975 LA radio app. Download the app from your favorite app store or go to the website, power975la.com. That's power975la.com. All right, y'all don't forget, you can always download the apps from Apple. You can Google Play or you can get it from Amazon. Okay, so download the app. A lot of people are downloading the app. It's real cool. It's real like intuitive. It has like a lot of really great functionality that I think you'll like. And then it also gives you notifications of different shows like the Midday Madness show, Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Okay, featuring your boy Mad Scientist. That's right. That's right. We play the hottest hip hop and R&B music that's coming out of LA. Okay. It's not only LA music, okay? It's music from everywhere, but it's the music we like to hear. I'm in the clubs a lot. So I know what we like to hear. I know what kind of R&B we like to hear. I know what kind of hip hop we like to hear. I know what kind of trap. I know everything, that we like to hear in LA. So what I'm doing is I'm just bringing it to you every day, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. All right. Okay, so let's get back to what we're doing today. What we're doing today is continuing a series that I'm starting. Now, let me just, for those who are listening for the first time or maybe seeing this um, on social media platforms for the first time, okay, I am not the how to guy. Okay, I'm not about to sit up here and do a bunch of videos on how to. I mean, it's not that I can't, I do have the capability. It's just that it's not my mission. It's not what I want to do. What I like to do is I like to DJ. I love to DJ. Okay. That's what I love to do. I also love to make music. Okay. So you can call me like a DJ producer with being a radio host on the side. So that's what I love to do. And so what I'm sharing with you guys is not the how to, but I'm more sharing the why, because one of the things that um, the a lot of the how-to videos are very good at, two things: giving you a little bit of information, and at the same time selling you some kind of, you know, um, something, selling you something, whether it's a plug-in or selling you, the selling you a longer how-to video. I'm losing my words because I got like, I'm in the studio and I got people in the studio moving around. I'm trying to get them to stop moving around. So, all right. So, hey, man, this is what happens when you have live shows. Okay. Things happen. Okay. Now, um, so a lot of times what they're showing you is the how to and a little bit of the how to, and they're trying to sell you something essentially. Okay. That's not what I'm trying to do. What I try to bring to you is the why. Okay. The why. Why are you doing this? Why are you um, using these tools? Why are you, uh, what perspective do you guys need to have when approaching either marketing your music or producing your music. Okay, so if you go back through my channel, or if you go back to the archive of the radio, you'll see a lot of what I talk about is, you know, when you're once you have your music made, okay, why are you going to do certain things after that? So right now, what we're talking about is loudness. Okay, and just to kind of give you a re-overview of what we're talking about with loudness. In hip hop, loudness was not something that needed to happen per se. Okay. Meaning that there was no official, you need to be this loud. Okay. Now, of course, louder is always going to be better. And so everyone's aspiring to get louder. But if you look at the history of hip hop, what's been most important to us is the actual content. You know, is the beat hard? Are the lyrics hard? Do we like the lyrics? Do we like the beat? If we like the lyrics and the beat, it being loud was secondary. Okay. Primarily because of how we listen to hip hop. We tend to have listened to hip hop first on the radio. Okay. Well, on radio, loudness is not really a requirement. Okay. Um, then on tapes, so loudness is going to be limited. Vinyl, loudness is going to be limited. And then on CD, and that's when we really started hearing loudness, right? And out here in the West Coast, one of the first producers to really capture that ability to get louder was Dr. Dre. Okay. So because of where we're listening to music, and then you go into clubs, a lot of times hip hop music was in clubs. So when you're inside of a club environment, loudness is important. But what we're seeing now is that hip hop is where we listen to it is being expanded. So now we're hearing hip hop in stadiums. Now we're hearing hip hop in arenas. And so loudness is now going to become way more important. I mean, I don't think that we're ever going to get to the point where something loud and, in hip hop, I'm talking about hip hop, where we will accept, oh, it's garbage. We don't really like the content, but it's loud. I don't think that we'll ever get to that. But it's going to be to the point where loudness is going to just be required, okay, in order for you to fill these outdoor spaces, these arenas, these stadiums, okay, you're just going to have to be louder. And so what I'm putting together is a series um, of live streams to talk about how do you get your music loud, why do you get your music loud, and what are the tools that you use to get your music loud, and why do you use them. So the last week we talked about, in part one of this, we talked about the channel strip. Okay. The one thing I want you guys to really focus on and understand is this: there's no one tool that's going to make your music loud. There's no one plugin that's going to make your music loud. Okay. I know you're probably going to get a lot of plugins that say they can. We'll just make your music louder. Just put us on. But loudness is a culmination of a lot of different things occurring and happening throughout the entire mix process. And you need to know these tools. In my quest to make my music louder, I realized that just going backwards, that a lot of my kick and my 808s were phasing. I didn't know this. Okay, it's hard to hear phasing, but if your low end is phasing, if you're kicking your 808s are phasing, then it's hard to really maximize how loud you can get. Okay. Um, and then not really understanding, throughout my journey, I didn't really understand. I was like everybody else, typical, just squash down the limiter. And I thought the limiter at the end would fix, the problem and just make everything loud, right? Not really understanding the role that saturation played, the role that clippers played, the role that compressors played, the role that limiters played. And to the point where the final limiter, that's really the smallest player when it comes down to making things louder. It is not the number one player. It's not your star. It's not, the Kobe Bryant of the team. Okay. The last limiter, it is the bench guy, actually. you know, the team manager that just makes sure everything is just like, okay, everything is settled. But it is not what ultimately gets your mix loud. So in my journey of being able to maximize my loudness on my music, um, I've learned a lot. And so the point of this series is to tell you what I learned and then tell you why you're going to do it. Okay. So we started off saying, listen, at the end of the day, because your music is going to be played in different venues, you're just going to need to be louder. Okay. Um, Now let's start with a small baseline. Okay. The baseline that I want to start off with is, what is loudness? Okay. And I've said this before, but I'll do it on every video so that if you're coming in the middle, you won't feel like you missed something. Okay. But loudness is a perception. Okay. It is loudness is what you perceive from the music. And that perceived loudness is measured in LUFS, LUFS. Okay. LUFS, LUFS. Okay. And it's a minus number. Okay. So you could be at minus 14, minus 9, minus 8, minus 7, minus 6. Okay. So most of the new DAWs, it's very rare that a DAW would not have a meter that can measure loudness. Now, you may not know it's there. You may have to go through and find it, but I cannot imagine any DAW out there, no matter what you use. I use Cubase. It has a loudness meter there, but if you don't click the right tab, and the tab is right there in front of your face, but if you don't know it, that you need to look at loudness, you may not click the tab. So no matter what you use, if it's FL Studio or if it's Pro Tools or Studio One, whatever you use, okay, they're gonna have a meter, and you don't have to buy another one. Now you can buy some loudness meters that you can use, and it'll give you way more information. That's fine, but most of the DAWs come with a basic loudness meter. Okay. So that's just the baseline. All right. And so what I'm going to do today is I'm going to talk about the role of compressors in this process. I'm not going to teach you how to use a compressor. They have many YouTube videos out there. I send everybody to mastering.com. Okay. If you go to mastering.com, they have deep dives into every tool you want to use. Okay. Most of the deep dives are like 6 to 12 hours long. Okay. And it's the deepest dive you can go. I mean, it's deep ocean diving. Okay. And I've gone through all of them, and they're really, really good. The great thing about them is that most of those videos are still newer. So they're working with newer plugins. So you're not gonna, it's not gonna tell you some old plugin from like 12 years ago. Okay. At the same time, they're not trying to sell you a plugin. Okay. That's not the point of those videos. A lot of the YouTube videos, they're just trying to sell you a plugin. And you don't, I mean, I'll be honest, you don't know, are you trying to sell me the plugin? Are you trying to just teach me something? And the more you learn, the more you realize that, man, they're just selling plugins. Okay. And I don't believe that they use them. That's just my opinion. So, but I'm not saying plugins are bad. I'm saying that picking plugins is about understanding what you need to accomplish. And once you know what you need to accomplish, then You may update the plugin, or you may find a plugin that makes what you need to do easier, especially now that we have AI plugins. An example of that for me would be, 'cause I like to use AI, to be honest. Um, an example of that would be resonance suppression. I don't like doing resonance suppression. It is a detail that I don't enjoy doing. I can do it, I just don't like doing it. Okay. It takes time to actually get it done. And you got to reference back, find it, reference back. And that's just the process I just don't want to go through, especially because they have so much AI that will do it for you within seconds. So I'm like, and the people I work with, they know how I am. I'm very, very tedious. I'm very, very detail oriented. I have OCD when it comes down to music production. And the people I work with, they do not want me sitting there trying to find every resonant frequency, because they'll be like, mad scientist, just give me the beat. I don't care if the resonance is there or not. Just give me the beat. And so a lot of the people I work with, I give them beats to. They're happy that AI has come, because, and they're happy that I've adopted AI, right? Because I will obsess over the smallest little details forever. Okay. Now, back to the point. So, we're going to talk about compressors. I'm going to give you, and we're going to talk about limiters. I'm going to give you a general overview of why they're necessary. I'm going to show you the ones that I use, some of the ones I use, not all of them. Okay. Because I have some for different applications, but I'm going to give you some of the ones that I use. I believe showing you the ones that I use for vocals. Okay. And that's not all of them, but I'm going to show you some of the ones I use for vocals. Okay. And I will explain to you why compressors, what role they play into making um, your ultimate music louder. Okay. The first thing we're going to do is talk about just compression itself, for those who may be like, I don't even know what a compressor is. What is a compressor? Why do you use compressors? Right. So I'm going to first start off with, um, just an overview of why we use audio compression. And the basics, uh, the basic reason why we use compression is to reduce dynamic range of an audio signal. Okay. Now, for those who don't know what dynamic range is the distance between the quietest that a sound is and the loudest. So if I were to like talk very quiet into the mic, right, which I'm not, but if I'm talking really quiet into the mic, that is the quietest. And then I'll get excited and I'm like, oh my God. And I scream into the mic. That distance between the quietest and the lowest is the dynamic range. Now, I used to hear that all the time, and I never knew what that meant. I'm like, what the heck does that mean? Right. And for those who are on radio and cannot see that, I have a definition of what audio compression is. Google is so great. I just typed in the purpose of audio compression. So if you're on the radio and you want to type that in, the purpose of audio compression, you can do that. But I used to wonder, like, okay, what does it mean? The distance between the lowest and the highest. Like, I don't understand, right? And I would see these little waveforms. I'm like, is it the distance between that peak at the high end of the waveform and the lowest? What does that mean? Practically, what it means is when people rap or sing, sometimes they sing quiet, sometimes they sing loud, right? And the quiet parts that they sing might be at minus 20 dB. And then when they sing loud, it might be at minus 6 dB. Okay. And So what you're doing is with the compressor is saying, okay, minus 20 is it's too quiet. And you're also saying minus 6 might be too loud. Okay. So you get a compressor and you push down the minus 6 and it gets closer to the minus 20. Okay. So now it's not minus 6 anymore. It's minus, it's minus 3. It's minus not minus 3, but minus 9, minus 12. And so it gets closer to the minus 20. And then you push everything up, back up to 0, and your vocals sound louder. That's pretty much the basics of compression. Okay. Like I said, I'm not going to go into the how to because you can always go to mastering.com on YouTube and they will have all of the charts and everything you need to, for you to understand how compression works. Okay. Now, the reason why you want to use compression, okay, here's the reason is because when you have, remember, I said loudness is about perception. So when you have something that is like super low, we're going to perceive it, or any kind of audio that's super low, we're going to perceive it as quiet. Okay. And that's going to be our perception and that's going to be our reality. Oh, that's quiet. Okay. When you have hip hop music or any kind of electronic music, the one thing people don't want to hear is something quiet. Okay. That is not a good term when you're dealing with hip hop or any sort of electronic music. In jazz, might work. In classical, it might work. In folk music, it might work. But in hip hop or any sort of electronic music, quiet is not something that you want um, in terms of your music. You might want a quiet room so you can record your vocals, but you don't want your vocals to be quiet. Okay, and so what what the compressor will essentially do is make sure everything becomes louder. Okay, and there is a process that compressors go through. It's not magic or anything. It's just a matter of it goes through the process, which I'm not going to go through, right? But it makes the music louder. Okay. And so for those who don't need that explanation, um, yes, you're going to have to not compress everything. I don't believe in compressing everything, but compression is going to be a component that you're going to use in order to get your mixes louder. And you're going to start, you know, on the track level. Okay. You're going to start at the track level. You're going to continue on to the bus level. And then you're going to continue on to the mastering level. Okay. Or the master channel level. Okay. And you're going to add a little bit compression at each stage. And in some cases, as in your vocals, you're going to use compression in series. What does that mean? You're going to have maybe two compressors on your channel doing two different things. Your first compressor is usually going to take away peaks. Your second compressor is going to make sure that you have a really tight dynamic range. Okay. Your bus compressors can do a couple things. They can create a groove. Okay. They can also glue things together on your bus. You can glue things. So usually on your bus, you're creating groove or you're gluing, and then um, on your master, again, you're doing gluing, primarily gluing. Okay. Um, Now, just keep in mind for those who are intermediate and advanced, every time you take an instrument through a different process. So you're starting off at the channel, and let's say you're adding plugins. You are adding small amounts of peak. And with loudness, peak is your enemy. Okay. Peak is your enemy. I know a lot of you guys have seen many of the waveforms now. You can see it now. It's a lot easier to see it. You can see the waveforms, and they almost look like blocks. Okay, they look like straight sausage, straight across, no peaks at all. Okay, and like if you've done music from the 90s into the early 2000s to the mid 2000s, you kind of wonder, like, how can it be that the music has no peaks, right? And like, and it still sounds good. Well, you have to consider two things. Number one, yes, in the late 90s when I got in, and in the early 2000s, yeah, we had a lot of peaks. That's why the music from that time is a lot softer. It's quieter, right? Because it had a lot of peaks. And only the producers who were really, really good at getting those peaks down could get louder music. Dr. Dre was excellent at getting those peaks down. Okay. Which is why, he took a long time. And by the way, let me say this one more time. In hip hop music, Dr. Dre will forever be the greatest hip hop producer of all time. Essentially, what AI is doing, what all these plugins are doing, is what Dr. Dre was doing by ear, by hand, period. Okay. So all the tools that we use now in order to like do what we do, Dr. Dre was using his hands, his mind, his ears to accomplish all those things. So there will never be another, in my mind, and in probably in my lifetime, I will never think that there's a greater producer, including myself. And I feel like I'm a really great producer, right? But there would never be another producer greater than Dr. Dre. Okay, that said, um, yeah. So peaks are your enemies. Okay, so is the enemy, the ultimate enemy to loudness. Now, it's impossible to have no peaks, but you want to limit the amount of peaks. And what compressors and limiters do is they cut down those peaks. And the reason why you have to use compressors a small amount at a time is because when you smash down a peak really, really fast, all at one time, you get harsh distortion, not the good distortion that we like, but the harshest distortion where it's just like it's smashed. Okay. You'll hear, like, especially when you use compressors, you'll hear the term over compressed. You know, your kick and your snares, they will not pop. Okay. Your beat will just sound like, and I know that that's really crazy to say because I just made a noise, but that's how it will sound, like garbage. Okay. Let me just say that it will sound like garbage. So, in order to get those peaks down, you have to do it slowly, 1 or 2 dB of peak reduction at a time, 1 or 2 at a time, just 1 or 2 at a time, pass it on, 1 or 2 at a time. Everybody's chiseling a little bit off and then pass it to the next one. Okay. But every time you pass it to the next one, there's more peaks. So there's always that challenge when you're using compression. And if you set your compressor wrong, you're going to get way more peak. So that's why you have to go to mastering.com. Okay. And go into that deep dive so that you don't just put a compressor on thinking, I'm going to make it loud. And then you're just creating more and more peaks. Okay. Um, so that being said, now what we're going to do is I'm going to show you some of the compressors that I use. Um, and again, I'm not going to go into the how to. And one thing I want to mention, I am not selling these compressors. I've tried to find photos of them that were large enough for my YouTube and my Twitch and my Facebook channel people to see. At the same time, I did find them, but Unfortunately, there's a price attached. I am not telling you to go buy these. I'm showing you what I use, and that is not a fancy way of me somehow convincing you to buy it. But then I, on the back end, kind of like low key, kind of get something from it. No, okay. I'm just telling you ones I use, and unfortunately, I could not find large photos without the price in there. Okay. All right. So the first one I'm going to show you is, and let me make sure this is the one that you guys are seeing. Okay, yeah. The first one I'm going to show you is called the CLA 2A. Okay. Now, the reason why I use this, and I'll be very transparent, is because if you've been doing production long enough, then you're told that this is the gold standard. Okay. You are told, and I believe it. Now, is this the only compressor that can do what it does? No, it's not. But again, I don't just go out and buy new compressors just because it's new and someone says, "Oh my God, this compressor will do this magical thing." Nah, I have it. I've been using it. I get the updates, but that's about it. Okay. Okay, so this is the CLA 2A. It's an optical compressor. Okay. And typically it's used um on vocals. That's what I use it on. I use it on vocals. Um Now this particular unit is an emulation of an actual um analog compressor that was used. I believe it was used in the I want to say the 70s. It was used way before now. Let's just say that. Okay. Don't quote me on the years. But inside of this compressor, they have tubes. And we talked about last week, we talked about harmonic distortion. And what we found in the digital age is that, oh, we kind of need those harmonic distortions, or the we need the saturation, the harmonics, the various types of harmonics that these analog um that this analog gear gave us. Now, I never had this, so I never had that problem of thinking like, I want to get rid of the harmonics that this compressor is giving. I never had that because I was a kid, and this analog piece of gear was way too expensive for me. But that is the the understanding, is that this will give you additional harmonics, saturation, and not a lot. It's not going to give you a lot, but it's going to give you a little bit. And like peak reduction, saturation is something that you want to get over time. You don't want to just throw saturation on your beat or on your vocals all at one time. So for me, like I talked about last week with the channel strip, I use the SSL channel strip because it gives harmonics. It gives, I believe, it gives even order harmonics. Okay, not a lot, just a little bit. And this is the same. This is the CLA 2A does the same thing. It gives even order harmonics, not a lot, just a little bit. Okay, and at the same time, it's compressing the vocal signal so that I don't have any quiet parts in my vocal signal. Okay. I don't want quiet vocals. That's not a good thing when you're doing hip hop or any sort of electronic music. You want smooth, but you don't want quiet. Okay. And you want to make sure that your vocals are consistently at a level. If you want to call it loud, consistently loud. Okay. Or if you want to call it mid, consistently mid. I like to call it consistently loud. Okay. And this particular unit is used to provide that consistency. Okay. And because it's even order harmonics, it's smooth. That's why a lot of people use it. That's why I use it. It's very smooth on the vocals because essentially even order harmonics. Okay. Another, hold on, let me, I'm just making sure for those who are on the radio, whenever I pause, it's because I have to make sure that the people watching this on streaming can see what I'm talking about. Now, for those who are on the radio, I'm not saying go away from the radio, but if you want to see what I was talking about, you can, after this stream is over, you can always go to my YouTube channel. Just find me, Mad Scientist. You can go to my YouTube channel and you can find the video for it. And then that way you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, when I'm talking about it. Okay, so this is the famous CLA 1176. Again, there was an analog real compressor, and I want to say in the 70s, 60s, everything's from like the 60s, 70s. Okay. Um, it might be 70s, 80s. Look it up. But I use this one, and I specifically use, you'll see two versions of it. The top says bluey, and it has a blue strip, and then you have the blackie, and it's all black. Okay. I use this. Why? Because when I started learning music production, I was told this was the gold standard. Like if you had this compressor, then you're good to go. Okay. I was told that. And I was young. I believed it. And I've had success with it. So I still use it. Are there other compressors out there that may be better? Yes. Are there other compressors that do more than this? Yes. Do I use them? No. Why? Because I'm fine with this. Okay. I'm fine with this. Now, if only way I would probably change is if they made an AI version of this compressor. Why? Not because I don't like dialing in all that stuff. It's just because, you know, if I can just push one button and it says, okay, it's properly compressed the way it's supposed to be compressed, I would probably like say at this point, because it's just time. It's more efficient to use AI. Okay, when you're talking about production, when you're talking about creation or composition, no, I don't believe that. I like to spend a lot of time in composition, and I will probably never. I won't say probably. I will never use AI for composition. It's just it would take away the fun, and it would take away the reason I love music. I would not want to use AI in composition. But in production, in terms of mixing and mastering, oh yeah, I will use AI. Okay. Only because it's not the thing that I want to do. And I'm not going to go into a long, I've talked about this in other videos. Um, Essentially, I've always said these ears are made for hearing, are made for DJing and composition. And when you're talking about any part of the music overall production process, the important thing, the one thing that you need that you can't AI your way through this is you need your ears. Okay. Whether I'm DJing or writing music, producing, mixing or mastering, you have to have your ears. Okay. And when you're talking about mixing, it's a different ear than mastering, which is a different ear than composition, which is a different ear than DJing. And these ears that I have are made for DJing and for composition. Mixing, not so much. I don't want, that's not my life's goal. Definitely not mastering. So, it's something that you're gonna have to make a decision about, whether or not how you want to spend your ear time. But I just want to explain that so that, you know, if you hear me say, I'll take AI for mixing, you'll wonder, well, why? It's because these ears are made for DJing and they're made for composition. All right. So back to the point. So this particular CLA 76 or 1176 um, compressor is famously known for being super fast. And the reason why we use it is because it will, remember those peaks I talked to you about that are not good? Well, it will tame those peaks. Okay. Not in one shot, but over time, over various parts of the mixing process, it will tame the peaks. It will tame the peaks. All right. So when it comes down to vocals, I use this. Actually, this is the second compressor that I use. Um, um, but the first compressor I use when it comes down to mixing, the first compressor I use is during recording. So I have a compressor that I use during recording. But when it comes down to mixing my vocals, this is the first compressor that I use. Okay. And I will just use it solely for taming peaks. Okay. Because it's super fast. I mean, it's super fast. Okay. And then again, this is adding harmonic distortion. It's adding, I believe it adds odd order harmonics. I'd have to look at it again. It's like one of those things where I measure it, I see it, and then I kind of forget about it. But and it's not in the manual. You just have to like test it and then see. But this adds more saturation, not a lot, but a little bit of saturation. Okay. And it's a different color saturation. So the more colors you add, like think of if you're coloring with crayons, right? And you have a little picture, you could use one crayon to kind of color in a face. Let's say you use yellow, you make the face all yellow, and it could be amazing as just yellow, right? But then you could put some shadows in there, right? You could put some wrinkles in there, and it makes the face a little bit more complex. It makes the face look more real. Whereas when you just use one color, it looks more cartoonish, right? Okay, so same thing with sound. Okay, you could just use one type of compressor, but the more compressors you use, it adds different colors, different saturation, um, and it just gives it more definition and it makes it feel real. Okay. And when you're talking about digital um, music production, real is so important because digital will become ones and zeros so quick. And we've already decided that we don't like ones and zeros. Okay. We've already decided that I believe in the early 2000s was when digital really became prevalent. And we said, oh, it doesn't sound good. Okay. So this is another compressor that I use for my vocals on the vocal track. So this will be the first one. And then uh, the um, the CLA 2A will be the second one. I use two compressors on my vocal tracks. Okay. Then I'll send my vocal tracks out to a bus. And on my vocal bus, I like to use it's called the MV2. Okay, it's a waves compressor MV2. Okay. Now, everyone will have their opinion on how it sounds. I don't use this for sound. I use this ex- explicitly, specifically for loudness. I usually produce rap, pop, which will include R&B, music, okay, electronic music. And in electronic music, there is no such thing as quiet, okay? Even in R&B, quiet is not a good thing, okay? So this is the it's for those who are beginners, sorry, you're just gonna have to look it up. But those who are more immediate, intermediate, and advanced, I will tell you it's an upward and a downward compressor. Okay. And that way I know for certain that the vocals are going to stay in a certain dynamic range. And I want to make sure. And I will say this for those who are more advanced, will it give you some a sound that is a little harsher than if you didn't have it? In my opinion, yes. It's not the smoothest, right? But you're going to hear it, not the consumer. The consumer will not hear the harshness that you are going to hear. It is not in your face, but if your ears are trained well enough, you're going to hear it. I'm not going to tell you like, oh, it's going to be the smoothest. No, I'd be lying to you. You're going to hear it. It's kind of like the T-Pain auto tune, right? When we first started hearing the T-Pain auto tune, the way he used it, people was people would say that's unnatural and no one's going to like it. You have to think of this plugin the same way. You're thinking, who's going to like that kind of sound? I can hear it. Okay. Cause I can hear it. I can hear the difference. It's a little crunchy, right? But I realize that the consumer would rather, they've already factored that in. They've gotten used to be, what they want is loud. They've never gotten used to quiet. The consumer has never gotten used to, oh, yeah, nah, I'd rather hear smoothness and have it quiet. The consumer's not saying that. Okay. So for those who may look at this and say, mad scientist, you're a little crazy. I don't know. I mean, what are you really listening to? I'm listening to the consumer. So it's called the Waves MV2. And I'm probably never going to get endorsed by Waves because Waves is like, there's no way possible that what he's saying is true. It is possible. I hear it. But I don't care because who I'm listening to more is the consumer, and the consumer wants loud. So what the MV2 allows me to do is keep things right there in that dynamic range where I know the vocals are going to be loud enough. They're going to be loud and clear in your face. Okay. Just the way the consumer likes it. So that's what I use. I'm not going to endorse this, but I'm telling you why I use it. Now, the last tool that I'm going to talk about is it's called the L1. Now, I will tell you this. The L1 that I have, for those who are on YouTube and they can see it, there's a little side panel that says quantize, dither, shaping, domain. I don't have that. Maybe this is an update. Just looking at it, I'm not going to be racing to get this update because I don't need all of this. Okay. But I just wanted to introduce this to the conversation, this tool to the conversation, because it is something that you're going to have to use in order to get your music loud. Okay. This is called an L1 limiter. Now, what a limiter is, and let me make this clear. What a limiter is not, okay? What a limiter is not a clipper. It is not the tool you use to make your signal square. The reason I say that is because I thought that for a long time. And when I went to mastering.com, they explained it. They're like, limiters just turn the it just turns it down and makes sure it doesn't go over a ceiling. Okay, it just turns the sound down. It actually makes your sound. It's, a lot of us use our ears and we don't understand what we're listening to. So I would turn the threshold down on this limiter and it would get louder. So when I heard mastering.com say it turns the signal down, I couldn't understand that. But they explain it very well. I'm not going to, but they explain it very well. Only thing I'm going to say is with the limiters that you use, Um, they don't um, clip. They're not clippers, okay? But I use them to make sure that my signal hits where I want it to hit. And where I generally want it to hit is -6. It doesn't go over -6 dB, but at the same time, it's not at -5 dB. And I typically will only reduce 0 to not even 1 dB, primarily because this these plugins, these limiting plugins, especially the ones that you can use on every bus like I do, they tend to add a level of distortion that I don't want to hear. Okay. It's very small, very minute, but I have other tools that I use to give that distortion. I don't need this tool to give me that distortion. I use other tools that we're going to talk about next week to give that distortion, to give that saturation. I just need this to be like the bodyguard or the security guard at the door. Okay. You cannot go over -6 dB. You can't go into this room of -3 or -2. Okay. -6 and that's it. Okay. And I push everything up into -6. Okay. I use this typically on all my buses. Okay. I don't use them on my individual channels. Okay. I use them only on the buses, and that's sufficient because again, they have in my production world, limiters have a very limited role. And so I'm not trying to use them on every channel. Okay. So um that's compressors and limiters. That's what we're going to talk about today. Next week, we're going to talk about clippers. What? Yes, clippers and saturation. Okay. And then the week after that, we're going to talk about the most important, what I consider the most important thing, which is the importance of creating your own kicks and 808s. Not going to show you how to create your own kick in 808, but I'm going to tell you the importance of being able to create your own. And I'll show you a tool that the tool that I use in order to create my own. Okay. So just to kind of summarize, number one, most importantly, the reason why you're listening to this series, we have to, you are going to have to start making sure your music is loud. At the minimum, you want -9 LUFS at minimum. I know Spotify says -14. No one said I don't send any of my music to Spotify at -14 LUFS. I will not. DJs require that your music is at -9. They may not know what -9 LUFS is, but they know what loud is. And if it's not loud, they are not going to like try to fix it for you. Okay. And in most of the applications where you're in a concert or a show, you're gonna need to be at least at -9. I know Chris Brown and I know for certain Chris Brown, I know for certain Tyga is at -8. Okay. Loud. And I generally go at about -9. I could go -8, but I go -9 because I typically will have more hip hop music in my entire project, and I don't want the hip hop to just sound like it's just quieter than everything else. But if I did all like club music, if I did a whole project all club music, I would be at -8 for sure on every track. Okay. If I did music trap, I'll probably be like 7.5 to 8 every track or every song. Okay. All right. So that is today's episode. I want to thank everybody who came through today. And I want to ask that everybody forgive. I'm in a studio area, and sometimes, you know, people make noises. And, oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Okay. So I want to ask everybody for their patience. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in. As you do, hold on, let me at least stop sharing. Okay, before I say goodbye. All right, everybody. So this is Mad Scientist on the all new Power 97.5 LA. And today we are just talking music. I want to thank everybody for coming through. We're here every week on a Saturday. So tell a friend, bring some people with you next time. Don't come by yourself. Tell everybody about this. And then, most importantly, if you have the app, please get the app from the Apple, Google, or Amazon locations. If you have the app, I'm on air every day, 11 a.m., Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m., playing the hottest hip hop and R&B music for all those independent artists out there. If you want to have your music played on the radio, you can. All you got to do is go to the website 90 power975la.com. Okay. They have really great packages for you. They will definitely take care of you. It's not expensive at all. Okay. What's really expensive is making all your music that you make and nobody hears it. That's really expensive. Okay. You don't need to spend that much money just to have you hear it by yourself. Let the world hear it. Okay. So go ahead and hit us up. We're not going to hurt you. We're just going to help you. And we also allow you to do interviews, promotion, all kind of stuff. So make sure you hit us up for sure at power975la.com. Once again, that's power975la.com. All right, everybody. See you guys next week.